Ladies and
Ladies,
gentlemen, boys and girls, iRacing fans from around the world, welcome to a very special event out here tonight. It is Slammin' Saturday. I am Scott Kolovic with KMA TV. Very special guest announcer joining us up in the booth tonight. How about it, Ronald? Have you got a copy?
yes, sir, Scott.
I tell you what, very excited to be out here tonight on this Slammin' Saturday evening. Talk to us a little bit about Talladega and the Silverados and Tundras.
Well, Scott, a little bit about Talladega, formerly known as Alabama International Motor Speedway. It's a complex located in north of Talladega, Alabama. The track was constructed in 1969. It is a 2.66 mile long racetrack, very similar to Daytona. We are in the Camping World Truck Series trucks tonight. They started out 1991 as the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Obviously, through sponsorships and whatnot, it is turned to the Camping World Truck Series. Tonight, these drivers can expect to be running about 450 horsepower with the restrictor plates that they have in place.
Going to be a good night out here tonight. Going to be seeing speeds up there, possibly up to 200 and some miles an hour. Qualifying is extremely important out here tonight. And, you know, sometimes, Ron, these Talladega and these super speedway races, they can go either really, really good or they can go really, really bad. Now, we do have a bit of a smaller field out here tonight, and hopefully that's going to bring us some good green flag pit stops. What do you think?
I'm hoping so, and it's really going to be about patience and understanding each other. And you know, the drivers have been out there practicing, been watching them. They all seem to be well behaved and ready to go. I mean, I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. I hope they are, and I'm hoping for some good green flag racing and some green flag pit stops, because that's when these races can get really exciting.
All righty, copy that. All right, we're going to take a look at our qualifying field out there on that front line. We do have Chris Voiles up there setting us off tonight for 100 laps at a 53.401, side by side with Richard Brose with a 53.410. Donald Stewart sitting in third place with a 53.425. Edward Bray, the Reaper himself, with a 53.431. And Gary Whitmer Jr., big shout out there too, Mom Whitmer, with a 53.434 in fifth position. Lee Staples sitting back in position 6. Jack Watts representing Southeast in position 7. Joel Guy, representative of KMA Racing, position 8. Chris Hogue, running with KMA Racing and Kickin' Asphalt, position 9. And J.R. Johnson rounding out our top 10. Sitting back in 11th position, Michael Johnson, representative of PAD. We've got Rob Haynes sitting back in position 12. Jeff Ryan with Unacceptable Racing. Jody Green with Unacceptable Racing. And Tommy Ryan with Unacceptable Racing for positions 13, 14, and 15. You and I were able to get out there, run some laps. We would be starting 16th and 17th, but instead we're up in the booth. Joseph Rice in position 18. Jeremy Funk back in position 19. And that will be our qualifying field out here, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, not a huge field out here, but a lot of good names, Ronald.
Yes, a lot of good names, a lot of good drivers, driven many laps with these drivers already, and I'd be more than happy to be out in the middle of the field with these guys anytime.
But it is a speedway, and as we had talked about speedways, they can go south, they can go north. Tonight we have got 100 laps to get her done, and we've seen them go either direction, so it'll be nice. We're going to be hanging out up here and keeping you live on the action. Going to look at a couple of great commercials and give you a whole lot of information about these drivers up here tonight. Starts and restarts always done second gear. On leader's discretion, there are rules out here. Tell us about some of those rules out here.
Most of the rules are for driver safety, but once the pace car is in, it's at the leader's discretion to go when he feels. During pits, the rules are stay to the right so everybody can see their pit box. Coming out of the pits, you got to stay below that yellow line so you get to the backstretch and merge safely when you can.
Good to see Richard Brose and Chris Voiles out there on that front line. Both those drivers running with the Maximum Velocity crew. Black Talon KMA Racing. We've got Gary Whitmer out here with Kicking Asphalt and Chris Hogue. So a lot of different teams, a lot of different sub-teams, and if you need one thing other than luck out here at Talladega, Ron, you need to have teams and you need to have a teammate to get you around this 2.66 miles superspeedway.
That is for sure, Scott, and I hope these guys got their seatbelts buckled tight because we're about to go green flag racing.
Very nice, safe start. Already, Edward Bray tucked up under the rear end of the pizza guy, Richard Brose. Donald Stewart giving everything he's got to the number 28 Chevy Silverado. Inside lane, though, looking like they've got some momentum. Now, right off the bat, Ron, I want to talk about that inside lane versus that outside lane and the speed you can get up there on that third lane. Where do you like to be, Ron, early in the race?
Actually, not just early in the race. I like to be on the outside. On the outside, it gives you options. You can move around. You have a little bit of room to your right. Assuming you're not 3 wide, you have a lot more room to play with. So, and then when there are incidents, usually the accidents go up to the wall, and because of the banking, they stride down from the top. So if you are running mid-pack and there is an accident, as long as you can get woed up a little bit and get the driver behind you woed up, you can usually make it around the outside pretty safely. So that's where I like to be, and you get a good freight train of cars on that outside, and they'll just keep pushing one car after another. As we're seeing now, the number 87 is about to clear and pulls down in front of Chris Voiles. Edward Bray was on Richard Brose's rear end, pushing him as hard as he could because he wants that clean air. He wants to get up. He obviously wants to get up front and lead some laps as well.
Now, something I find really interesting, and I've been out here doing this for 4 years, racing out here, and I racing for 4 years, and to this day, it still confuses me. You can actually line up these Chevy Silverados and these Toyota Tundras from that yellow line up to that wall, 5 trucks side by side, but yet and still, we find 3 wide to be extremely difficult. Now, what is that situation all about?
Driving in a simulator is not like it is driving in your car. You have a sense of awareness in these cars, but not like you do in a real car. The judgment, the depth perception is all different because it's not exactly real. As real as it is, and believe me, it is pretty close to real, you don't have that perception, you don't have that feeling, you don't hear and feel you can hear the wind change a little bit, but you don't feel the wind change if you were out there for real. So running 3 wide can be difficult because of that, and your field of view is a little bit limited.
Now, there's all sorts of gadgets and gizmos. Edward Bray uses one of those gizmos called an Oculus Rift. And, a lot of the guys out here, they're running 3 monitors. Our good friend Paul Pellizier with Kicking Asphalt, he actually runs out on 5 monitors. But the Oculus Rift, Gary Whitmer, I think, runs it as well. And that is just as virtual as you can go. A little bit of an expensive investment, but I tell you what, Edward Bray, big winner out here, almost always within that top 5. Now, I hear you've used the Oculus. What are your thoughts on that Oculus?
It's very immersive. It fools you into believing that you are actually in a reality. From the moment that you sit down or stand up, whatever the case may be, the minute that you slide those that eyepiece over your head, you are immediately in a 3D environment. So they have demos that you can play with and watch and see. And then once I fired up the simulator and did it, and I sat in the car, it was a completely different experience, because if you run with the monitor system, which is what I'm running with right now, everything is 2D. It's two-dimensional. But when you put on that Oculus, it becomes a three-dimensional view. So things like the tachometer that you would see in front of you as just a flat panel now becomes three-dimensional, and it has like a case, like a housing on the dash, and the dashboard changes. The steering wheel looks like a real steering wheel. But you can look down and you can see the gear shifter. You can look down and see the pedals. You can look up and see the roof. You can turn left and see out the window. You can turn right and see out the right window. So it's a very immersive experience. And for me personally, unfortunately, I got sick from it. It's a very common thing, simulator sickness, and they're working on that in future revisions. They're talking about making some slight changes that will help that, and if they do, and it doesn't affect me, I will immediately be on board doing it.
Nice, but it actually did make you a little bit nauseous out there.
It did make me quite a bit nauseous, actually. I was sick for about 6 hours. I felt kind of ill, and believe it or not, that's how Gary Whitmer Jr. ended up with the Oculus that he's running. He purchased it off of me. He had no ill effects from it, and I was certainly happy that someone was able to use it and not get sick from it. So
nice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are on lap 5, 95 to go. Drivers out here doing a great job keeping an eye on the number 87 of Richard Brose. Now, Richard Brose has led 6 laps, but he was just passed up by the combination of Edward Bray and Black Talon Racing, the number 66 and the number 64. But Richard Brose in the number 87, hot and heavy on their tail. Joel Guy dominating up on that outside lane, working with the number 68 of Rob Haynes and the number 37 of J.R. Johnson. Talk to me a little bit about what you know about this combination of Edward Bray and Lee Staples with Black Talon.
Wow, first of all, I got to say, Scott, I'm shocked right now to see Joel Guy up front. This is completely different than anything that I've ever seen Joel Guy do. Joel Guy likes to hang out towards the rear of the field and stay away from the possible big one. So I'm not exactly sure. Maybe Joel decided tonight was going to be a different strategy. He was going to run the race differently. I got to give a shout out to Joel Guy, who's almost out in front right now. He's dead even with Edward Bray pulling ahead, looking like he is going to clear Edward Bray, and Joel Guy out front.
Joel Guy doing a great job out here. Now, he did qualify tonight in 6th place with the smaller field, and I tell you what he's thinking. I know I've known Joel for a very long time. Qualifying up in 6th, you are in the middle of what we call that hornet's nest. So he basically had 2 choices. He could either drop backwards 10, 12 slots to get into the rear of the field to put enough distance between him and where he thinks that possible caution will come out, or to get it up there to the front, because if you're in 1st place, pretty much guaranteed to miss that caution. What do you think?
Pretty much guaranteed. I'll agree with you, but not always. You know, I have been wrecked leading the race. Somebody has bumper hooked me, but you got one of the best in the business in Edward Bray pushing on Joel Guy. He knows when to push and when not to push. That's a deadly combination there. You got 3 cars that know how to work well together. You talked about it. You brought it up just a few seconds ago, the Black Talon Racing. Those 2, they're going to race together. They're going to work together. Well, just because they're Black Talon doesn't mean that they're not going to be working together. I did see that contact as well.
Very wide.
Like the 64 got a little loose.
That's going to
but
knock
we stay
that.
green.
That's going to knock that 68 out there onto that outside lane, and the 68 not getting a whole lot of love right now. Going to lose several positions as the 004 of Michael Johnson dropping up to catch him, but they're still 3 wide, sitting back here in 15th position.
Yeah, what an unfortunate issue there for the number 68. But it's still early in the race. He made no contact with the wall. They might have rubbed fenders just a little bit. Probably won't hurt his aero performance. He'll tuck in behind the remainder of those cars and probably be just fine, especially with the help of the 004. He'll get back up to that draft, that lead pack, and slowly start working his way back up front. Rob Haynes is another accomplished speedway racer, much like Edward Bray. So
right now, Rob Haynes is only 1.5 seconds back off of our race leader, Joel Guy. But now let's talk numbers of the pack. It is just Rob Haynes and Michael Johnson sitting back there in the rear of the field. They have got to make sure they do not lose that pack draft. If they lose the tail end of Jeremy Funk and Tommy Ryan, we're talking at least 4 to 5 miles per hour difference on speed.
yes, Scott, it is very important for the guy that's pushing to be pretty much to overheat the truck. I mean, pretty much take it right to the limit of blowing it up. And you'll see, if I'm currently watching in blimp view, I can see that gap shrinking. So Michael Johnson's pushing Rob Haynes very hard. They've all but caught the lead pack now. So kudos to Michael Johnson for ducking out there and picking up Rob Haynes and sticking with him and getting him back up to this lead pack.
Another good driver out here is Gary Whitmer Jr. Big shout out there to Mom Whitmer and Dad Gary Whitmer Sr. Gary Whitmer Jr. right now sitting in 11th position, looking very sharp out there in a over-the-top paints and designs paint job. He has got the number 6 hot on his tail, number 6 being driven by Chris
we're
Hogue.
going 3 wide. Sorry to interrupt, Scott, but we're going 3 wide again. Not sure why the number 7 truck jumped out of place there. Maybe he thought somebody was going to go with him. But we were 3 wide there for a second, and it got real exciting here for just a moment.
Number 7 being driven by Joseph Rice. Now, there may be an explanation for that. Joseph Rice on the communication channel for KMA Racing, but not necessarily hooked up with any specific team. So he may be in the process of getting dumped right now as the number 6 and the number 50 being driven by Jody Green. Leave him out there, but he is way below speed. He is, my goodness, he is way below speed up there in that high lane.
Yeah, Scott, he's losing. He's even though he's still in the draft, he doesn't have. He's not close enough to a truck to have that speed like they do down on that inside lane. Now, I would have been on the radio talking with spotters and getting back and forth and trying to make sure that, hey, would somebody mind letting me in? But I guess that didn't happen. That didn't pan out. So we'll see where he falls in line. Looks like he's going to fall in line behind the 18 truck. So all is still well.
He's in a good spot right now, actually, as long as he can hang on to the number 18, and he has Rob Haynes right hot on his tail, as well as Michael Johnson. So actually, maybe he just wanted to drop to the back of the field, but that is not where I would want to be, because with the 17 truck field, if that caution comes out, I'm going to predict it's going to happen between position 5 to position 10 there in the Hornet's Nest. So I'm not sure. I wouldn't want to be dropping back a little bit more or getting way further up into that field myself.
I agree with you, Scott, and that's a big if the caution comes out. We're looking at possibly one of our better nights here in at the Super Speedway. We've run 16 laps, and I'm knocking on wood here, and no cautions yet. So these drivers are being pretty patient. They're giving and taking, and And we're having some good racing out here.
Having some great racing. Gives me time to introduce a couple of more newer drivers. Well, they're not new to me. They might be new to you, might be new to our fans, but looking at the number 18 of Tommy Ryan, his brother, the number 88 of Jeff Ryan, driving the Bojangles, and the number 50 of Jody Green. This is the team of Unacceptable Racing. And I tell you what, they are some pretty acceptable guys. Their team is headed up by Mark Allen. Mark Allen is out there spotting them on their radio. But Jody Green, Jeff Ryan, Tommy Ryan, just kind of floating around, hanging out here in the back. I expect these three drivers to be together through thick and thin all night long.
And that's what good teammates do, Scott. And you see that a lot with KMA. No matter what, when a KMA driver needs help, there's always at least one person who will drop back or who will, slow up and pick somebody up. Just as we saw with Rob Haynes and Michael Johnson. That's a typical situation there where KMA as a league, all these drivers will help each other.
Richard Brose back up into that front line on that outside lane, being challenged by the number 37 and the number 77 of Jack Watts. Big shout out there. Loving these purple rims out here. Now, folks, coming up on Sunday, we do have a race for pad, and I can tell some of these drivers already getting into that frame of mind, getting on their purple rims out here tonight, like the number 37 Headblade, being driven by J.R. Johnson. Now, he started out here tonight on 10th. Right now, he has worked his way up to first and has actually led 6 laps, being pushed on by the number 77 of Jack Watts. Richard Brose back into that. Richard Brose in pit row. A little bit of an early pit stop for Richard Brose, but we're staying up here with JR and Jack.
Yes, Scott, I'm getting some reports that Richard Brose was having some latency issues, so unfortunately he was an issue. He was basically causing issues out on the track. Drivers were scared. He was disappearing, kind of like the net code issues that we've seen. So he pulled up high, and he may have sustained damage while that was going on. So that's probably why he went into the pits.
Probably a very good idea. Taking a look at the number 77 of Jack Watts. Now, we have got a long line on the inside lane, but we've got the number 97 and the number 78, 97 of Jeremy Funk, and 78 of Donald Stewart up on that outside lane. But it's just them two. Everybody else is down onto that inside lane, single file, and it's not looking like it's working out too good for the 78 and the number 97.
Not at all, Scott. Not sure. Looks like the field is pretty happily single file right now. I think Donald Stewart probably wants to get up front, but once he gets up front, it would take a tremendous amount between him and Jeremy Funk to clear the 37 truck and get up front. The other side of that is if Jeremy pushes Donald clear of the number 37, he could pull down, but that would leave the number 97 out there on that outside lane by himself, and we've seen what happens if you don't have someone with you on that outside lane.
Well, he's got to get up there, hung out and dry, and he's going to have to drop all the way to the rear end of that pack. Checking in with Gary Whitmer Jr., sitting up there in a good position, in position 9. Chris Hogue in position 10. The Unacceptable Racing guys sitting back there in 11th, 13th, and 14th. But I tell you what, J.R. Johnson up here on that front line, leading his 9th lap, doing a really good job. Have you got a favorite driver out here tonight, Ronald?
I got to go with my RTK Motorsports drivers, Gary Whitmer Jr. and Chris Hogue, who just happen to be right behind each other. So I know a lot of things will change throughout the course of the evening, but looking for those two to work together and possibly put RTK Motorsports up towards the front of the field at the end of the evening.
Well, we are going to be closing in on our green flag pit stops. Looking at a fuel load sitting out here, folks, of about 29 to 31 laps. We are on lap 23 of 100 with JR and Donald Stewart and Jack Watts still controlling the front part of the field. Getting into pit row, not a really huge challenge out here on these speedways. But again, there are rules. Talk to us about pit row, Ron.
Well, coming into pit row, obviously there's a pit road speed that you have to be below. And if you break that speed, you get a pit row penalty. So these drivers are going to, as they come through the front stretch, come off turn 4 and come down the front stretch, they'll duck down and they'll start getting it woed up and getting it from 190 plus miles an hour down to 60 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour. That can be a job in itself. Don't want to get on the brakes too hard. You'll smoke the tires, possibly spin out. So it's a little more tricky than people give it credit for, but most of these guys are professionals at doing it. We've run enough super speedways and don't see many issues like that.
Well, it's something else that's important. You want to pit with your teammates. You want to pit at least with 2 or 3 other drivers, because again, the more the merrier with the numbers. And going into pit row, you want to have enough drivers with you so that if 1 or 2 drivers do get penalized, that pack can still roll on. It sucks if you're the guy getting the penalty, but when I usually pit, I like to take in 5, 6 guys with us. You count on 1 getting a penalty going in, you count on 1 getting a penalty going out, you still end up with 4, and 4 is a good number of trucks to have on the closing laps.
I'd say that's about right, Scott. Unfortunately, there is human error and everybody makes mistakes, and sometimes that is exactly what happens, and other times, all 5 or 6 drivers will make it without issue. So it's kind of like the rest of the super speedways. It's kind of lady luck, so to speak.
On lap 25, Donald Stewart and Jeremy Funk still very content out there riding that outside lane. Jack Watts and J.R. Johnson, Joel Guy, Edward Bray up there on that inside lane. But again, here's a different situation to talk about. With it being lap 26, Donald and Jeremy just might want to be getting down.
Yes, and that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier. Donald and Jeremy on that outside lane. Well, if Donald wants to go out front, get out front so he's able to pit, from that bottom lane. I have seen people pit from the outside lane and make it, but it's very difficult. That's what I was alluding to. He would either have to dump Jeremy or they would have to drive so hard that they would both get out in front of the number 37 of J.R. Johnson. So I would expect to see that move coming here very shortly, where somebody's going to open a hole and allow someone to duck in. Once again, KMA works well together, and we're seeing it right there. From what my vantage point, looks like Joel Guy backed off just a hair and let the number 78 in. So now we'll see if somebody's going to open up a hole for Jeremy Funk or if they are just going to hang him out there.
Well, so far he's keeping pace, doing the best he can. He has caught a little bit of draft off the number 78. But I'm not really seeing a hole up here. We're watching it up here from blimp view. And I am not seeing a hole for Jeremy to get down into. And he's got about 2 to 3 laps maximum. He's got to get this figured out.
Yes, Scott, and I would say he probably has less than 2 laps to get it figured out. He was pushing Donald Stewart for quite a long time out there on that outside lane, which is going to burn a tremendous amount of fuel. So
he's actually making forward progress. He's just about up there to the number 77 of Jack Watts. Donald Stewart possibly making a hole for Jeremy Funk to slide into. The truck will fit, but he's up about a lane and a half. Is he going to slide her in? Slide like Whitesnake says, slide it in slow and easy. Jeremy Funk safe once again as we do approach green flag pit stops. That Donald Stewart sure is a nice fella.
He is. I've got a quick one here, Scott. This is for all of our viewers out there. We got quite a few people watching right now. Talladega, one of my favorite tracks to watch on TV, is called X Country. X meaning place the name there. So when you come to Talladega, people call it blank country. So anybody out there on that KMA TV chat who may know what I'm speaking about, put it in the chat. I'm watching the chat, and I'll tell you if you're correct.
Alrighty, I might actually take a little bit of that action because I have no idea. I am absolutely clueless. But a big shout out there to the fans on the KMA TV chat: Scott Nelson, Becky Whitmer, Jason Eisenhower. He's going to be joining us next Thursday, trying to work his way into KMA Racing. We're on lap 30 of 100. I'm expecting pit road to be extremely busy.
Yes, Scott, I'm hearing reports of some teams, some spotters are calling pitting this lap. I saw some guys duck off last time, and here we go. Here come a bunch of them.
Jack Watts, J.R. Johnson, Donald Stewart, Joel Guy, keeping cameras focused on Jack Watts. In fact, we're going to get into the shotgun position with Jack Watts and roll through this green flag pit stop here on lap 31. Busy place right now.
Very busy, Scott. Did not expect this many cars to pit together. I think the first pit stop the first group may have confused some of the other drivers and didn't break it up as much as we may have thought it would have. Looks like these drivers are getting their service and getting back out. Seeing Donald Stewart out already. I'm seeing J.R. Johnson, Edward Bray, and others.
Green flag pit stop, loving it. Jeremy Funk, though, out there by himself. That's going to cost him a little bit of time. Donald Stewart has got J.R. Johnson to work with as they merge back up onto that track. Edward Bray and the 64 of Lee Staples and the 77 of Jack Watts. Those three drivers hooked up nice and tidy. Gary Whitmer Jr. out of his green flag pit stop, and he's got the number 7 of Joseph Rice. So he's actually in a very good spot as well.
Yes, I'm watching to see how this all unfolds, Scott. I'm currently watching Donald Stewart, who came out in front of these basically the leaders who had pitted the lap before, and they just now passed Donald Stewart, and Donald is trying to catch them with the help of J.R. Johnson.
Well, that would be the number 50 of Jody Green, the number 18 of Tommy Ryan, the number 88 of Jeff Ryan, and the number 28.
Oh, and here goes Donald Stewart to the outside. He's wasting no time whatsoever. He is going to go with the help of J.R. Johnson to the outside.
They had a run. They had a
huge run, and he is rocketing past these cars right now, starting to slow down a little bit because now they're starting to buck that draft, bucking the headwind. I'd like to give a shout out to Scott Nelson out there on the KMA TV chat. Said, hey, Scott and Ron.
Always good to see Scott Nelson out there.
It's always good to see anybody out there on KMA TV chat, and I love to interact with the fans, so no one has come up with the answer to the question, what country, when I say blank country, what do they call Talladega? They call it Earnhardt Country.
Well, now that you tell me, that makes a lot of sense right there. Dale Earnhardt.
Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr. have won a ton of races here. The most wins at this racetrack is Dale Earnhardt Sr. with 10. Most consecutive wins is Dale Earnhardt Jr. And to go further into that, most top fives, Dale Earnhardt had 23 top fives and 27 top tens. So
nice.
That is why they call this Earnhardt Country.
He obviously knows what he's doing. And I tell you what, out here on this speedway, you've got to know what you're doing. And right now, the Unacceptable Racing guys, they obviously know what they're doing as they take positions 1, 2, and 3. Donald Stewart is tucked down into that inside lane. Black Talons, Edward Bray, and Lee Staples still in it to win it. Jack Watts hanging on to the rear end of the number 37 of J.R. Johnson, but still in a very comfortable spot. We've got 8 drivers up in this lead pack, and we're estimating our next round of pit stops to be right at about 57 to 63.
That is correct, Scott.
A little bit of 3-wide action going on right there with the number 28.
I'm checking on Jeremy Funk, and I'm not sure with his pit strategy. It's made it very difficult for him. He's fallen 34 seconds back off of the pace. Obviously, with no one to run with, that's going to hurt his chances to stay on the lead lap.
Well, and what's more, at this point in time, not that he's a necessarily threat or a danger to the field, but his speeds, as you're a solo driver, you're looking at speeds of 180 miles per hour as compared to the speeds of Tommy Ryan right now at 194 miles per hour. So you're looking at a 14 mile per hour difference in speeds. Now we got a rule again, all about those rules. Slower traffic, go high. Whether you're the leader, whether you're lap down, if you're slower than that oncoming pack, get up into that high lane. But not everybody follows that rule, and a disruption of that rule, that can cause complete chaos.
For sure, Scott. And if you flash back to Jeremy Funk, we're looking at the leader, Tommy Ryan. His last lap is 49.223, and if you flash back to Mr. Jeremy Funk, his last lap was 53.4, so he's losing almost 4 seconds a lap.
Well, and they're almost right up to him. They are coming on him like a runaway freight train.
Yeah, they're going to swallow him up. He'll go high. And with any luck, which unfortunately for Jeremy I doubt will happen, but with any luck he may be able to catch some side draft, speed up the truck enough to get in behind them and pull the draft. But usually that doesn't happen with a single car or truck. Got to have someone else with you, and usually you can do.
We are going to keep these cameras up here in the blimp view as this 8-car pack is bearing down onto Jeremy Funk. This is lap 38 of 100. We are caution-free. 12 lead changes. J.R. Johnson leading 17 laps out here on this Slammin' Saturday Super Speedway event. Jeremy Funk is up into that high lane. Tommy Ryan and company. And I tell you what, the Unacceptable Racing guys, I'm not sure who thought of that name, but they're very acceptable tonight. And here we go. We're going to be 3-wide action with Jeremy Funk up on that outside lane. Nice.
They get cleanly through it, no issues.
Well, Jeremy tagged that wall just a little bit. He tagged that rear end onto that wall. But other than that, no issues. But he is not going to be able to catch the draft of these lead pack.
Well, while we've got a minute, Scott, I'd like to give a big shout out to my wife of 22 years. Today is our anniversary, and I know she's watching, so I'll give a big shout out to her and want to say thanks. Thank you for allowing me to pursue my passions.
Well, happy
Racing has
anniversary.
been my passion.
Happy anniversary. Her name is Denise, correct?
Yep.
Well, happy anniversary. 22 years in today's day and age. That is a major accomplishment. Now, come October, my wife and I will be celebrating 25, but we've been together, three-wide action with the lap traffic of the 68. But we've actually been together for 29 years, and I told my wife last night, it feels like 70. Well, and she wasn't real happy with me for some reason or the other. I don't know. Donald Stewart going to lead his first lap. Donald Stewart with the help of the 37 up there in that P1 position, but he's not going to hold it long. That has the number 18 of Tommy Ryan, still working with his teammate Jody Green. Now talk to me about temperature, because we just did see a little bit of separation from the 37. Oh, whoa, big move up there by the number 18. There's that temperature right there, Ron. I think the number 50 of Jody Green might have been getting a little warm.
Yes, Scott, I would have to agree with you. A move that drastic would be pretty much Jody screaming in the channel that they're in, the team chat that they've got going on, that hey, I need you to get up, I need you to move up, you're clear, move up, I'm gonna blow it up. So when you're pushing as hard as some of these guys have been pushing these last few laps, these cars will get extremely warm, and get them warm for too long, they'll the engine will expire, as they say.
Three wide.
Now, here's an interesting development.
What is the 18 doing?
I am not sure.
Well, the 18's going all the way to the rear of the pack.
I am dumbfounded, and unfortunately, I just saw the number 6 of Chris Hogue down in the grass through turns 3 and 4, so I'm not exactly sure what happened with that. I'm going to go back and check that out while you
wait, actually, I'm backing it up right now, and there was some contact between the number. What we're looking at the 5, 7, and the 6, and there's a 7 and 6 contact, but no caution.
Okay, you got to go live, Scott, and there was an issue up front too. So after you finish this here, we are still green, but there were issues with the leaders just a moment ago.
Well, it's broken that pack apart up there in the front.
It sure has. Oh, I hate that for both those trucks, Joseph Rice and Chris Hogue. Chris Hogue just an unfortunate victim to that.
Well, you know, it does not take much to turn these trucks at all. Just the slightest tap, and round they go. As Scott Nelson says out there on the K-Made TV chat, a bumper hook between the number 6 and the number 7. Now that's going to shake things up in front for Jack Watts, leading his second lap tonight. Well, good job for Jack Watts.
Yep, and I know our viewers were unable to see this, so I'm going back and I'm looking, and the number 37, and back that up one more time, your leader, J.R. Johnson, was just, unfortunately, he was just bumped. Let me get my cameras back on him.
Yeah, it was not a strong enough bump to get my cameras to grab it, unfortunately. We've got the cameras on J.R. Johnson, and they're lining back up here. The 37 of J.R. Johnson, along with the number 50, as they come around the number 68, 68 being Rob Haynes.
Okay, I was watching the replay there, and it was an unfortunate racing incident. Spotters were incorrect. The cars were not clear, and the number 37 made a move and unfortunately got down into the 50. So that's what happened with that, Scott.
Well, now that did split the number 50 Jody Green away from his teammates Tommy and Jeff. But Tommy and Jeff still in a good spot here in positions 6 and 7. 1.5 seconds back off of the race leader of Jack Watts. But what we've got right now, we've got a 3-on-5 situation. And again, the numbers matter. So Jack Watts, Edward Bray, Donald Stewart, Lee Staples, and Chris Voiles, and they are one more time bearing down on some lap traffic.
Yes, they are, Scott, and the field is really, really spread out here. I'm going to go back over and take a look at my KMA TV chat, and my wife said thanks for the giggle, Scott.
Yep.
Looks like Scott Nelson's caught that bumper hook, and Becky Whitmer says Lady Luck was looking out for GW. So,
and indeed it was, but unfortunately that'll put Gary Whitmer by himself though at 40 seconds back. But he is still running with a clean truck though, so indeed a lot of luck right there for GW.
And the race is far from over. I know it will take probably a caution flag to get Gary Whitmer Jr. back up the lead pack, and if he does get lapped, he'll have to try to stay the first truck a lap down. But that's how these races go sometimes, Scott.
And anything can happen at these speedways, but you know, it is possible we may go caution free tonight out here at Talladega. And coming up onto a pad race, that would be really, really a great attitude to bring in tomorrow night to a pad race.
Agreed, Scott. Whoa! I'm hearing caution, Scott. I'm not sure what happened. I don't have any info.
Yeah, copy that. I'm a little confused as to what brought out that caution. I'm scrambling for the cameras, but you know, I'm not. Oh, there. Rob Haynes and Joseph Rice, I do believe. We're going to back up those cameras and take a look at the contact with, looks like Chris Hogue may have gotten into the number 97 a little bit. Number 697 caught up into that, as well as Rob Haynes in the number 68. So first caution of the night coming out on lap 49.
Wow, I'm not sure what happened there. I don't know. Maybe he thought he was clear. Spotters lie. They can't see everything on the track. It's driver responsibility to make sure that you're clear.
But I tell you what, that is going to shake everything up, and it's going to make for an interesting pitting schedule here. We are at the halfway point. We're going to be taking lap 50, and that'll put Jack Watts, Donald Stewart, Lee Staples, Edward Bray, and Chris Voiles out there on that front line. Now, I can only assume pretty much everybody's going to head off into pit row.
Yes, Scott, I would believe so. I wouldn't think anyone would stay out. The only people that may stay out would be someone who would not get the lucky dog and stay out in hopes of because of a caution, because the field's going to be tightened back up again. That would be the only reason that I would even conceive staying out there.
Well, the number 7 of Joseph Rice, he will be getting that lucky dog. And Joel Guy and the number 68 of Rob Haynes, they're going to stay out there for that free pass. Interesting. That'll give us a chance to talk to my good friend Joel Guy. How about it, Joel Guy? You got a copy?
I got a copy on you, Scott.
All righty. I'm assuming you're out there hoping to get that free pass. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. We had a malfunction on the filler neck on the car and got no fuel in it twice. So they let me run out of fuel.
They let you run out of fuel. Nice. All righty. Well, I tell you what, we're taking
I'm going to have to fire my pit crew.
Fire your pit crew. Nice. Well, bring the new pit crew tomorrow to the pad race. I'm walking around your truck, and I am seeing the pad logos and the purple rims and the purple numbers and a lot of Marine Corps. Tell us about your military experience.
Well, my father was in the Navy in World War II. He was stationed on the USS Cowpens, and because of him being in the Navy, I went into the naval branch of the service. But I wanted to be in the Marines. I liked their uniforms better, so I went in the Marine Corps, and I spent 2.5 years in the Marine Corps before I got injured and got out because of not being available for promotion.
All righty, good stuff right there as far as the information. Good racing out here tonight. We got halfway through with only one caution, so I'm going to assume that the atmosphere is pretty good out there. How are you feeling personally? You're 4 laps down, though.
Well, I was feeling great when I was leading and running up front, top 5. When I lost fuel, I kind of got down in the dumps, but that's racing.
All right, you got anything for him, Ron?
I was shocked and amazed that you had changed up your strategy, Joel. Usually you're hanging out in the back, and there you were up front, and I was cheering you on, and I was just shocked. Pleased to see you up there, and unfortunately, I know the highs and the lows. I too have experienced a crew chief who, for some reason, has not put in fuel or had issues with the fuel filler neck, and I too have experienced that, so I feel your pain. I wish you the best of luck for the rest of the night, though, sir.
Thank you, Ron, and y'all have a good time up in the booth, and we're going to hang in here and hopefully get a couple of laps back.
Hang in there like a hair in a biscuit. Good luck, Joel.
Thank you, Scott.
Gotta love that hair in a biscuit stuff. Want to get one other quick interview in, assuming he is on channel. How about it, Mark? Have you got a copy? Mark Allen. All righty, unfortunately, Mark Allen not on the radio, but we can get the next best thing. We've got Tommy Ryan. How about it, Tommy? You got a copy?
Yeah, 10-4.
All right, we're trying to raise Mark Allen up there, the boss man. Didn't mean to bug you when you're going into pit row. We'll give you a second here, but whenever you're ready, talk to me about your night.
We were just kind of hanging out, trying to save as much fuel as we could for the pit stop, and I definitely wanted to get on pit road before the crowd hit. And we're just trying a little strategy stuff right here, and we'll see what happens.
All righty, I see you guys are really trying to stick together with your brother, with your teammate Jody out there. Tell us a little bit about Unacceptable Racing, and where can we check you out?
Well, we obviously have a Facebook page. We're not real good at updating it lately, but there's always some fun stuff to look at on there. I'm going to tell you one other little thing about the race is I was really surprised that me and Jeff and one other truck, and even me and Jeff alone, we could pull the same speed as we could in the main pack. So it's going to be interesting that 2 trucks, maybe 3, can hold the same speed as a big pack and probably pull something out right here. It's going to be pretty fun to watch, I think.
All righty, and I got to ask you, who came up with the very acceptable name, Unacceptable Racing?
I did. That's an old joke from my from where I work. I have a boss that always is going around saying, "This is just unacceptable." So every time I got on the racetrack, I saw something, I would call that out, and that's how the name came about.
Yeah, well,
So it's kind of like we are very acceptable drivers, but we are unacceptable.
go ahead, Ron, real quick.
Not much else to add except for you guys have been doing a great job tonight. Hope your strategy works out for you. It looks like the lights are out on the pace car. You guys are getting ready to go to green, so I'm going to let you go.
Good luck.
All right, man.
All right, again, ready to go back to Green Flag Racing here. We're going to be taking lap 53. We've got Edward Bray, Donald Stewart, Lee Staples, Chris Voles, and J.R. Johnson. Pace car is in. Take it away, Ron.
Well, we got Edward Bray on the inside, Donald Stewart on the outside. Edward Bray waiting, and now he's going. Not that it makes much difference here. I don't think that if you get a big jump that there's any real advantage, especially by yourself or even with another truck. The rest of the field, because of the draft, will just catch up to you. So restarts here really not that important, with the exception of missing a gear or something to that effect. So,
Well, and what you're alluding to, I've seen a lot of rookie drivers make that mistake. They'll be up there on that front, and they're thinking, "Ooh, I got the first place position, and I'm going to go," and they scoot out there. They're out there all by themselves, and then they've got 10 to 20 drivers bearing down on them like a fly bearing down on a hot plate of tomato soup. I tell you what.
absolutely, Scott. And as we watch Donald Stewart fighting on that outside lane, he's got help with the number 28 of Chris Voiles and Jack Watts. Rob Haynes as well. Rob Haynes 1 lap down, maybe trying to fight his way up front, get it back the old-fashioned way, Scott.
Well, drive it like you stole it. I want to give a big shout out there, too, Over the Top Paints and Designs for painting up that Boston Red Sox Chevy Silverado being driven by the number 78 of Donald Stewart. But, looking at the rear end of the number 64 LA Graphics, Lee Staples, he's got a little bit of rear end damage.
That may have come from just some good old-fashioned bump drafting, Scott. I'm not sure how extensive the damage is. I'm going to see if I can pan my cameras towards that. But, yeah, it does seem to be very minor. It looks like it was probably from maybe a little bit too hard of a bump, or maybe he had to get on the brakes and somebody got in the back of him. Doesn't look like it's affecting the performance of the truck, as he's sitting solidly in, we'll call it third position, pushing on his teammate Edward Bray.
Well, we're going to see Ed and Lee trying to stay together as much as possible, along with Donald Stewart. Now, Chris Voiles, he's out here running with Maximum Velocity Racing, so he's possibly on his own out here tonight. Not seeing any other Maximum Velocity racers out here tonight other than Chris Voiles, so it's tough out here. And to quote the most famous song, one is the loneliest number. But again, we're still very early up in tonight's race, Ron. We're only on lap 56 of 100.
And the good thing is we still have a pit stop to go yet, and more than likely it's going to be under green flag conditions.
I would think it certainly would be. Small field out here tonight. Only about 17 drivers. We've still got 15 drivers here out on the field. We've got 11 drivers out there on the lead lap. Gary Whitmer Jr., the 11th driver on the lead lap. He is hanging on to the rear end of the number 19 of Joel Guy. Now, Joel Guy has fallen to 3 laps down, but right now, Gary Whitmer's future very dependent upon Joel Guy.
It's also very dependent upon caution, Scott, because I can't be positive, but I'm pretty sure Gary Whitmer Jr. had to stay out and take the wave around to get back on the lead lap.
So his fuel will be different.
Yes. So if he doesn't get a caution, and I'm not sure when the last time he pitted was, but since we went green flag racing, I'm going to say it was around 28 to 30, and we know that we get about 28 to 30 laps, and he was running a couple slower laps, and there was a couple caution laps in there. It isn't going to be very long, and he's going to have to make that pit stop.
So Gary in a position where he would actually need a caution. But Edward Bray, Donald Stewart, Lee Staples, not quite so much. And I tell you what, those front 2 red and black trucks looking very sharp out there. Chris Voiles doing a great job. Jack Watts in the number 77 showing his support for Southeast. And again, Jack Watts out here by himself, but doing a great job. And we've got 3 wide action back there with the number 91 of Joel Guy. Letting Gary Whitmer fly. Gary Whitmer, the monkey in the middle right now. Joel Guy looking like he may be dropping to the rear of the field.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's going on, Scott. I'm not hearing anything over the scanner, and looks like that outside lane is kind of falling apart a little bit. It's starting to move back up now, but kind of fell apart there when that 3 wide happened. So
Joel Guy not seeming like he is very interested in getting up into that packet at all, but a little bit different situation there for Jeff Ryan in the number 88 Bojangle. Looking at the rear end of the Chevy Silverado, it's Bo time. It may be Jeff Ryan time, as he is hanging on to the rear end of the number 50 of Jody Green. Jody Green very comfortable, but looking like he's flirting with that yellow line. Now, you can do that here at Talladega.
yes, you can, but we all know that you cannot at Daytona. Not sure what's going on up front here. There's some weird things happening up front here, Scott. You got you had the 66 and the 64 on the inside lane, and J.R. Johnson pulled to the outside, created a huge gap on the inside lane, allowed that outside lane to get going, got Donald Stewart around the number 66, and now it's the 77 and 68 on the outside lane, while it's Donald Stewart followed by Edward Bray, Lee Staples, and Gary Whitmer Jr. on the inside lane.
A little bit of jockeying for position starting to develop early on. Gonna ride shotgun with a few of these drivers. Riding shotgun with Gary Whitmer down on that inside lane. Jack Watts up on the outside looking at the LA graphics of Lee Staples. Getting a good view of that damage. Very slight. Gonna jump up into the cockpit of Lee Staples. Lee Staples is tight as glue, hanging on to his teammate Edward Bray. Edward Bray pushing on Donald Stewart. And Donald Stewart, nothing but blue skies and empty highways in front of the number 78, getting ready to lead his 9th lap of the night.
And Jack Watts got hung out to dry there, but did manage to find a spot to duck into. Like you said earlier, Scott, 1 is the loneliest number, and these guys that are by themselves out here tonight, you know, they're probably trying to make friends with just about anybody that will befriend them, and they're gonna need it.
Becky Whitmer talking about how, says, Scott, he's my applesauce kid. Nice. Going to take a quick look at our current running order here on lap 62 of 100. Donald Stewart, Edward Bray, Lee Staples, Gary Whitmer Jr. in 4th. Chris Boyles, Jack Watts, Michael Johnson up to 7th. Tommy, Jody, and Jeff sitting back in 8th, 9th, and 10th. Michael Johnson in 11th, still on that lead lap. Rob Haynes 1 lap down, along with Joseph Rice and Jeremy Funk. Joel Guy 3 laps down, so 15 drivers still in tonight's race.
They've been doing a fantastic job tonight, Scott. We only lost a few drivers, and only a couple of them were due to wrecks. One was due to network issues. So real happy with tonight's race so far, and I'm sure you've got to be as well.
I am pleased as punch. As Becky would say, pleased as a peacock. Pleased as a punch-drunk peacock. We can even take her right there. A lot of the guys in here that oftentimes run with some bad luck, they're making a good run up here. Gary Whitmer sitting in 4th position. Jack Watts sitting in 6th. Michael Johnson. Now, there's a driver we don't talk about a whole lot. Michael Johnson out here representing Pad. Looking very sharp. He's even up there to position 7th.
Yeah, you don't usually see Michael Johnson running in the pack, especially at this point in the race. So maybe there's some confidence in the group of drivers that are out there tonight, because he's right in the middle of the pack and doesn't seem to be having any problems whatsoever.
Well, you're only as confident as the trust level that goes around with the drivers that you are driving with. At 65 of 100, should be seeing some green flag pit stops coming up, possibly within the next 5 laps. That would be their pit window, would be lap 70.
Getting reports of pit stops, Scott. Here they come.
All drivers pass pit row one more time. So we're thinking that Gary Whitmer Jr. may be one of those drivers getting ready to pit. Could be anybody though.
I saw a group of cars jump off this past lap. So
Unacceptable Racing guys. Nice. We got them. We got Jody Green, Tommy Ryan, Jeff Ryan leaving pit row. Alrighty, but I don't know. Lap 66.
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy.
They're
Scott.
not going to have enough.
Well, I think what they're doing, I could be wrong, but they may be counting on a caution flag in the last few laps to get them there.
That's going to be very interesting. And here comes those leaders. Those leaders are going to bear down on them. But if this thing goes green, that could be the unmove of the night.
Definitely not a risk that I would have taken. No real reason to short pit there, especially with the amount of cars that are still out there on the lead lap. And I know that they said that, 2 trucks are just as fast as the lead pack. Nah, I don't really believe that, because I don't think these drivers are pushing it as hard as they have to.
Right now, Donald Stewart sitting at speeds of 192 miles per hour. Gary Whitmer at 191. And Tommy Ryan at 189, 190, 191. Yeah, these leaders, they are not full throttle hammer down right now. They're just out here taking their time on a nice, easy, nice and cheesy Saturday night. No worries up here for Donald or Edward or Lee or Gary.
No, they're not pushing it as hard as they need to right now. And we got Lee Staples doing 193. If I jump back to Tommy Ryan, they're doing 194, 195. So they're pushing as hard as they can right now. And what that's going to do, Scott, is burn a whole lot more fuel. So they could actually even, this could put them into the 28 lap window, where they only have 28 laps of fuel if they push this hard. And they pitted with 35 to go. So, doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. But you never know. The strategy could work out.
Well, and Tommy Ryan, Jeff Ryan, they're looking at 35 seconds back off of our race leader, Donald Stewart. So I don't know. It could go. It is still early on. Lap 69 of 100. Donald Stewart, Edward Bray, Lee Staples, Gary Whitmer, and Jack Watts, our top 5.
I must have been mistaken about something, Scott, because Gary Whitmer Jr. is currently roughly in 4th, 5th, or 6th position right now. Expected him to have to make a pit stop, but somehow he must not have. Maybe he was not a lap down. It looked like he had stayed out to get a lap back.
Right now, he's looking like he's in a very good spot. He's in a very comfortable spot.
Yeah, and they're coming up on probably about 2 laps. They'll probably be making their final pit stop. So, look like Gary Whitmer Jr. in a very good position right now.
Now, talking about fuel mileage, if this does come down to a very solid pit strategy, Donald Stewart and Edward Bray, they're going to be using a lot more fuel than that of Gary Whitmer or Jack Watts being up there on that front line. Even Lee Staples, he can float it out a little bit. He doesn't need to be hammered down, but Donald Stewart, being the leader, he has got to be foot to the floor, buried.
Yes, sir, indeed. And I've just brought up my relative, and I'm watching to see what those 3 cars are doing versus the remaining 8 cars that are up in the front lead pack. And of course, there's a couple of cars that are lapped down in that pack as well. And last lap, they were 35 seconds behind. So as soon as I get that updated results, we'll let you know.
Rob Haynes and Jeremy Funk on that outside lane, the 68 and the number 97. Both of those drivers 1 lap down. But as long as they're not causing a problem, they're up here allowed to run with the leaders. And I've seen oftentimes where a lap traffic vehicle will actually push a driver up there to a win. So there could be a little bit of a sleeper move here with Rob and Jeremy even.
Correct, Scott. And I think you've seen that move done by me. I've pushed cars to the win, being a lap down. So it's nice to have drivers like Rob Haynes, who's got a clean truck, a good driver. You hate to see him a lap down from our perspective, but from Edward Bray or Donald Stewart's perspective, when we're all competitors, they don't mind seeing him a lap down up there racing with him, because they know that when push comes to shove, he's fast, and he might be the guy that you want to jump up in front of to push you to the win. So it's unfortunate that he's a lap down, but it's going to work out great for the rest of these guys.
Big shout out there to Becky Whitmer on that KMA TV chat, giving you a little information there, Ronald, talking about how the caution came out before Gary Whitmer was lapped. Well, that would explain it right there.
Oh, okay, good. Thanks. Thank you for that, Becky.
I tell you what, really rely hard on the fans out there to keep us rolling. Really like the fans' involvement, the drivers' involvement, the sponsors' involvement. I want to give a big shout out there to a few of our sponsors. Big shout out there to our Friday night sponsor, Greg McClendon and Blaze Pizza. Had a great race and a great broadcast last night. Also a big shout out there to my good friend Jason Russo, Pro Automotive, our Tuesday night sponsor. And last but not least, Gary Whitmer. And we've got green flag pit stops for Chris Voiles. Chris Voiles heading into pit row on lap 74.
Definitely not optimal, Scott. You got Chris Voiles that came down pit road, and not a lot of cars came with him. From what I can tell, it looks like only Michael Johnson and himself came down pit road.
Interesting situation there for Chris Voiles and Michael Johnson. Back up here with our race leader, Donald Stewart. We're on lap 75 of 100, 25 to go. 21 lead changes, 1 caution, totaling 3 laps. Donald Stewart, Edward Bray, Lee Staples get her done, but Rob Haynes and Jeremy Funk being the lap traffic up on that outside lane, up there keeping by themselves, but doing a really great job staying out of trouble, but still trying to get their lap back. Now talk to me about how that works. You had mentioned about getting their lap back the hard way. Well, what you talking about right there, Ron?
Well, the hard way is going past the leaders under green flag conditions, and if a caution comes out, you're on the lead lap, so you don't have to count on that lucky dog.
So
the other way, obviously, it would be to make an entire lap up, which unfortunately
that's not going to happen.
With these, with the rule package that they have nowadays, that's impossible. If this was many years ago when Bill Elliott was driving without restrictor plate, that sort of thing did happen. So, but not in these days. You got to have the draft in order to run. So
the smartest move to be made right now could be made by the number 68, because what he needs to do, Rob needs to get in front of that number 78. Once he gets in front of that 78, technically he will be on the lead lap, but he's going to be being pushed on by the leader.
yes, Scott, that is correct. So it's but it also can help the leader too. Like I said, all about being teammates sometimes when it comes right down to it. Now these guys are way good on fuel. They pitted on lap 50, 51, something like that. I'm not sure exactly when that caution did come out, which means that we should be seeing them come to pit road here very shortly. But
I would say within the next 5 laps for sure.
I would think actually within the next 3 laps, but it could be 5. But having Rob out in front at this point, it really doesn't benefit anybody. If it was a fuel strategy thing, the 78 could tuck behind the 68 and not burn as much fuel as being out front. So we're at that point where he's going to be good on fuel. And the other side of the story here that we haven't talked about, the guys that pitted already, they're 36 seconds back. They've only lost a couple seconds to the lead lap pack, right? The lead lap guys only need about 20. Well, I'm going to say that they're going to come within the next couple laps, so we'll just call it 20. They only need 20 laps of fuel, so they're only going to take what they need for fuel. And I'm getting reports that they are pitting now, so call it 22 laps, well, 21 laps of fuel. So these guys are going to have faster pit stops than the guys that stopped back on, with 35 to go as we watch them come into pit row.
Jack Watts, Gary Whitmer, the number 68, Edward Bray, Lee Staples, and Donald Stewart. Oh, goodness, look at the rear end of Donald Stewart. Now that's going to slow him down a little bit.
I would expect if Donald Stewart has not gotten the backup truck out that you're going to see that happen right now.
Looks like he just backed into a telephone pole. He's taking those left side tires. Edward Bray taking left sides. I don't know. He's pulling out of there with a little bit of damage, so I don't know.
Maybe someone didn't notify him that he had the damage. And to be completely honest with you, I'm going to jump up to his truck and I'm going to zoom in. That is quite a bit of damage, but if he gets in the draft, whether it's being pushed or if he's sandwiched in the middle, it really won't make that much of a difference.
Well, he's actually, the rear end damage, it's not a huge factor, but I'm getting my cameras on it too, and I tell you what, he is, as the Unacceptable crew goes whipping by, and that'll put the Unacceptable guys up there to positions 1, 2, and 3. But now we got to remember, we're thinking they're not going to make it on fuel. But back to the Boston Red Sox, he's got some severe rear end damage, I'll tell you what.
He sure does, Scott. He's got a tremendous amount of damage back there. Whoever got into him should have let him know that he was pretty beat up. But you're absolutely right. Going back to what you were saying, we know that the Unacceptable guys cannot make it. If I were the leaders, and by leaders I mean from Donald Stewart back, I would tell everybody, all right, guys, let's be patient. Let's stay in line. These guys are going to run out of fuel. We'll fight it out in the last few laps. Because at this point, you don't want a caution coming out, helping their chance that strategy works for them.
Big shout out there to Chris Hogue out there on that KMA TV chat. Always love seeing Chris Hogue out here. Good teammate, good team member. Now he runs with you, sir, does he not?
He does run with RTK Motorsports. He was actually at the last edition of RTK Motorsports. He comes with a ton of excuse me, ton of experience and a ton of knowledge, and we're glad to have him on board. Just like many other teams, it takes some time for everybody to gel, and Brad Ream and myself, who unfortunately is not out here tonight, he and I ran together for a couple months, so we know each other very well, communicate very well, and Chris and I have been communicating here quite a bit more recently, and he likes to drive his cars a certain way. I like to drive my cars a certain way, so the communication back and forth, and we're getting his cars set up a little better. He had a great night last night, absolutely fantastic night last night for RTK Motorsports. So big shout out to Chris Hogue for that, and can't wait to see what's going to happen the rest of the season here and then moving forward.
Looking at Edward Bray up on that driver compare. Right now, Edward Bray, Donald Stewart sitting at 1.6, 1.7 back of our race leaders, Jeff Ryan. Now, either way it goes, they are gaining up on Jody, Tommy, and Jeff. Donald's sitting here right now at 1.4, so we've got a 5-on-3. And, everybody's got their favorite driver. I am almost positive that Jody, Tommy, and Jeff are not going to make it. But right now, Donald Stewart and company has cut that lead down to 1.1. They've caught him.
And that's all Edward Bray, to be completely brutally honest with you. Edward Bray, one of the best pushers in the business. The guy is spectacular behind the wheel at these super speedways. He understands the cars. He understands other drivers. He knows when to push, when not to push. He's patient. He sees his situational awareness is seriously second to none. So when you got the best pusher in the business behind you, you're going to catch the guys in front of you pretty easily.
They have caught him pretty easily. Lap 85, 15 to go. They've got him right here, Ron.
Yep, and here comes the run to the outside.
Still,
that damage that we saw to the back of the number 78 obviously is not affecting him much at all.
Gary Whitmer still riding with this pack in sixth place. They're challenging him. Now here's where it gets interesting. What does Donald do? Does Donald go down to that inside lane? Or does...
Now, Donald has stayed to the outside lane. He doesn't want to help those guys out in any way. He knows that they're burning fuel down on that inside lane. Nobody will move to that inside lane until that entire
Edward,
lane is cleared.
Ed, we're going to be 3 wide right here, I do believe.
I do believe that Edward got hot and Donald pulled out.
Well, at this point in time, they're just looking for a KMA win. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Unacceptable Racing versus KMA Racing, racing at its finest. Donald Stewart on that outside lane. Jody Green, Tommy Ryan, Jeff Ryan, Edward Bray sitting here at Talladega where the big boys play.
So here's where it's going to get interesting and really dicey.
Uh-oh. Unacceptable Racing right now controlling both lanes. And I tell you what, that is something that Edward Bray will not tolerate. He is going to get a KMA driver up there in front. He's got Gary Whitmer right there with him. But Unacceptable Racing controlling the inside and the middle.
I think you're wrong, Scott. I think that Edward's smart enough to know that they pitted. My scanners are tuned in to all the different channels, and I just overheard some conversation between the KMA members, and they said, remember that they pitted early. So I don't think that you're going to see them push the issue. I think you're going to see patience right here. I think that's why you're seeing that outside lane with all the KMA members there. They're going to make they're going to make those guys down in the inside lane run as hard as they can, and basically run them out of fuel.
Well, I tell you what, they're doing a great job out here tonight, catching our fans up with our leaderboard. J.R. Johnson leading 17 laps. Donald Stewart, the big leader tonight, leading 26. Jack Watts has led 7.
and they just dumped the number 18. Edward Bray took that line to the outside, dumped the number 18, put him in the middle.
3 wide action here with 12 to go. Edward Bray leading 10 laps out here tonight. Jody Green leading 9. Big 3 wide action here. Gary Whitmer now in the middle, but he's got Mr. Bojangles hot on his tail. Edward Bray side by side with the number 50, Jody Green.
Well, like I said, Scott, when you got the best pushers in the business, you'd be just fine. And if you load that outside lane, you got Donald Stewart out there, and look who's right behind him.
3 wide action here. Love getting those cameras down there on that right front suspension when they're 3 wide. Taking a look at the side of the number 88 of Jeff Ryan on that yellow. You can see all the rubber, all the buildup from those tires getting all over that pretty paint job. Looking at the rear end of Gary Whitmer. Gary Whitmer in a very strong 4th place position. Donald Stewart to his right side. Getting a good amount of draft up there on that wall.
And the number 18 has taken it to the high side now as well. Kind of surprised. The teammates have abandoned the low line. Jody Green is out there by himself on that low line. This is kind of shocking, Scott. I kind of out of words here.
8 drivers up here fighting for it all. Edward Bray, Gary Whitmer in the middle, Donald Stewart, Rob Haynes. And I'm pretty sure Rob Haynes is going to help Donald Stewart all he can. Jack Watts, not a friend in the world. Well, not a teammate. Jack Watts has got lots of friends, but not a teammate out here tonight. But he's in 4th place right now, holding his own.
Yes, he is, Scott. And when this all shakes out, you know, when the fuel strategy comes into play, which we're going to find out here very shortly.
About lap 96, I'm guesstimating. Oh, tight! There we go! No, no!
Here we go. There's the big one. It took the entire field out, Scott.
All right, we're going to walk right through
Literally
this.
Just took the entire field.
All right, looking at the number 60 and the 77, 60, 50, the 50. Looking at the number 77, Rock, the number 50. A little bit loose, getting involved into Gary Whitmer, Edward Bray, Donald Stewart, flatter than a pancake, Rob Haynes, Mr. Bojangles. Ooh, my goodness. Well, that scared me just looking at it. You can only, you know, the frustration right now. Wow, what a heartbreaker.
Yeah, Scott, this, you know, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what side of the stick you're on, this is going to be a huge break if those drivers that were about 5 laps short on fuel, if they have a backup truck left, they'll be ducking into pit road getting that backup truck, and they won't have to worry about their fuel strategy backfiring on them now. So
Now, by the time we get back to green flag racing, though, Ron, we're going to be looking at about a 4 lap shootout.
correct. But this is, I mean, I'm actually gonna watch these guys on pit lane and see who has the backup vehicles left and who does not, because what an unfortunate incident. It took out all the leaders.
Well, we are looking at Donald Stewart and Edward Bray making their trip down pit row. We know Gary Whitmer's pulling in. Jeff Ryan's pulling in. And J.R. Johnson actually is staying out.
J.R. Johnson pitted earlier and had no damage, so worked out well for him.
Well, that's going to line J.R. up against that pace car in that number 1 spot. Give us a chance to talk to you, J.R. How about it, J.R. Johnson? You got a copy?
Hey there, buddy. How are you?
Doing good. How are you, sir?
Struggling, but making it.
I'll tell you what, you're making it pretty good right now. You're in first position.
Yeah, not the best spot to be in with 5-6 to go.
But I tell you what, you're a lot better off right now than you were 2 minutes ago. What'd you think about that late caution? It took out everybody up front.
I thought I was pretty lucky. I thought it looked like a green run for sure. I didn't think there was going to be a caution, and I was just praying for one. We got one, and I didn't expect everyone to hit the hits like they did, but here we are.
All right, and I tell you what, looking at the head blade, number 37, first of all, thank you for supporting the purple rims and the pad logo there on the rear end. We're doing the pad race tomorrow, and it looks like you are painted up, geared up, ready to go. Talk to us about head blade. What is head blade?
Well, that's for us bald guys that like to shave their heads. It's made specifically for that. I use one, love it. That's it.
All righty, I did not know that. Also, a big shout out showing the KMA TV logos up in the back of the bed of the number 37 truck. Thank you, sir. Anybody you want to give a shout out to tonight?
I just want to give a shout out to everyone at KMA, you guys in the booth that do this week in and week out. All our sponsors that do this every week. It's great, awesome. You guys love you, man.
All righty, maybe we'll be talking to you in about 5 more laps. Good luck to you, JR.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Ronald, this will probably be our last caution. Is there a driver you would like to talk to?
Let's talk to Gary Whitmer Jr.
All righty, copy that. I can make that happen. All right, here he is, Ron.
Gary Whitmer Jr., Ron Klein in the booth. You got a copy, bud?
I got you, Ron.
Well, not exactly what I wanted to see. How's your night going, sir?
A lot better now. I'm up front.
I noticed you were pretty much right there up front in the middle of it and poised for a spectacular finish. Talk to me about that last incident just a couple laps ago.
That was 3 wide, and I think the inside line come up. Somebody got a hold of the car behind. The behind car got behind that one and got into him, and they come up. That's all I know. I'm not sure what else happened.
We were devastated up here in the booth. We saw literally the entire lead pack get wiped out in one fell swoop. Looks like you've got a clean truck, so you must not have used the backup truck earlier. You got the backup truck out there now?
Yeah, the backup truck's out here now. I saved the reset all night up until now.
Alrighty, and with just a few laps to go, you got any partners? You got any friends out there?
Probably going to team up with Edward Bray and see what happens.
I tell you what, you got a great pick there. If you stick with him, I believe you're going to finish well. Anybody you'd like to give a shout out to real quick?
Yeah, shout out to Mom and Dad. Love you guys.
All right, well, you're the last RTK Motorsports car out there, and I secretly am rooting for you, even though I am just broadcasting at this point. I wish you the best of luck and bring it home for us.
Yep, you two have fun up there in the booth also.
Oh, we're trying. Thanks.
Good luck to you, Gary.
Yep, thanks.
All righty. So now, Ronald, talk to me about attitude. You know, we've been talking about teammates all night. Now, of course, you want to push your teammate to a win. I mean, you naturally want to do that. As we're talking about this, we're going to put up that running order and talk about some of these possible scenarios that may take place here. You know, we got J.R. Johnson, Lee Staples, Edward Bray. Those two will be together. Donald Stewart, Gary Whitmer. Gary Whitmer trying to get to Edward Bray. Jeff Ryan trying to get with Tommy. Jack Watts solo in 8th. Chris Voles, Michael Johnson's. A lot of scenarios.
Yes, I think you're going to see 3 wide almost immediately as soon as we hit the backstretch. That is part of the rules. Can't go 3 wide until after until the backstretch. I don't think it's going to be long at all. They have two trucks together on that outside lane. The third car is just joining in. I think they'll jump to the outside. I think it's just going to be a drag race to the finish here, Scott.
I'm thinking you're right. I think it's going to be a very exciting finish out here. It's been a great race. And away we go.
Away we go for sure. Not much is going to develop here, obviously, until we get up to speed, but it will be interesting to see what these unacceptable racing drivers are going to decide to do, whether they're going to hang on to the last couple laps or if they're going to make a move, pretty much immediately.
Becky Whitmer talking about how Mama has calmed down. Let's go GW, and indeed, let's go GW. All right, we've got J.R. Johnson and Edward Bray on that inside lane. Lee Staples, Donald Stewart on that outside lane. Gary Whitmer, the third truck on the inside lane. Lap 96 of 100. Tommy Ryan in the number 18, 3 wide, with his brother on the outside and Jack Watts on the inside. Chris Boyles in the 28, going to try to shoot him up that center, but there's really nowhere for that 18 to go, and they're falling backwards.
They are currently falling backwards, but they drop down low. They're going to pick up the draft.
Big move by the 18. Big move by Edward Bray up in front.
Yes,
Edward Bray, Lee Staples making a big run, but they pretty much abandoned the number 37. That'll put Edward Bray. Can he squeeze it?
Going to get really, really, really interesting here, Scott. The unacceptable racing guys have hooked up. They are going to take it 3 wide.
Gary needs to get up there. Get it moving, Gary. Get it moving, Gary. And Tommy and Jeff, brother and brother.
It'll all depend on that middle lane. Who goes the middle lane? Who goes the outside lane?
Lee Staples, Edward Bray looking very sharp.
Yep. Lee's got Lee's got one of the best pushers in the business. Oh.
But here comes Gary and Donald in that outside lane by Unacceptable falling apart. Looked like Gary and Donald were going to get on a little bit out of a run right there. Lap 98 of 100, 2 to go, folks.
Looks like Gary's trying to keep it cool.
J.R. Johnson up to the middle. J.R. Johnson, 1 lap to go. It's going to be Lee, going to be Ed, going to be J.R. Lee Staples up in front of.
There's a huge block.
Oh, easy, fellers. 4 wide. Heading off into 4 wide. What a finish. Here we go, guys. 4 wide. 5 wide.
Staples and Edward Bray have hooked up once again.
Oh, no.
They're gonna crash. They are crashing out.
All righty, but we are still going to have.
It is going to be Lee Staples and Edward Bray crossing the finish line first. Jack Watts third. J.R. Johnson fourth. The number 19, I believe.
All righty.
18 of Tommy Ryan and Jeff Ryan.
What a finish. All right, so we're looking at Lee Staples, Edward Bray, and Jack Watts. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All righty, I tell you what, folks, hang out. What an exciting finish. We were 4 wide there at the end. We're going to grab these drivers up here and get a chat in with them. All right, I'm going to go round up J.R. Johnson, not J.R., Jack Watts.
Jack Watts, yep.
Jack Watts, and we're going to let you talk to Mr. Jack Watts as soon as I can find his radio channel. There we go. Let's find Jack and get him up here. There you go, Ron.
Hey, Jack Watts, it's Ron Klein up in the booth. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good now. How you doing?
Fantastic, man! What an interesting and exciting finish. Talk to me about that last lap. I mean, I saw so many people moving, jugging, and jiving, and it was crazy. Talk to me about how you managed to bring home third place.
I really don't know. Kind of the seas parted type of deal. It was fun. Everybody was trying their hardest, but racing really clean. And then I got a shot to try to push Edward to the front, so I figured, what the hell, I'll go for that. And then he got, I think it was Lee that blocked him down there. We couldn't go no farther, but it's just ducking and dodging.
Well, that was an exciting finish. You were, as Scott and I were talking about, you were kind of the lone man out there, so to speak, because no other teammates out there tonight that I know of, unless we were incorrect. So that had to make it kind of interesting and difficult at the same time, not really having somebody to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried at the beginning, and we did it at the beginning to work a lot with JR, but when he hit the pit, when we did the pit sequence, we were kind of like, he came out way behind me or I came out way behind him, and it just didn't work out, but did the best that we could to get up here and ended up where we ended up. It was a good run.
Well, the truck looks great. Doesn't look like there's a scratch on it. Did a fantastic job, put on a great show for the fans. We appreciate you coming out. Anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks to KMA for putting this on. This is a really good time. KMA TV, my team especially, Southeast Motorsports, for helping me the way that they have and brought us home in third.
Alrighty, well, one last thing. This is the first time that I think that I've got to interview you. I love the lightning paint job. Talk to me real quick about that.
Yeah, Doug Turner and our team, he painted this stuff up, so I really appreciate that too.
Awesome looking paint job. Awesome job racing tonight. Congratulations on a third place finish, and hope to see you tomorrow night in the pad race.
10-4, thank you. Good job, Edward. Good job, Lee. Good race.
And thank you for displaying those pad logos, Jack. Very good job.
Absolutely big supporter of Pad.
All righty, how about it, Edward Bray? Talk to me about your evening, because we thought you were dead in the water, and lordy, I had guessed it early on that Lee and Edward, Lee was going to be the donut, and Edward was going to be the fat man hanging onto that donut. Talk to me about those last couple laps.
Oh, Scott, I was going to push the lead to the win, even if I blew up the truck. Lee and I pretty much worked together pretty much most of the race, along with a couple of other KMA guys. But yeah, at last 3 laps, you can put a piece of paper in between our trucks.
All right.
And we had talked about that, Ed. Scott asked me, coming down to the end, who I wanted to be around or who I would want. I said the man in that 66 truck. That's the guy. He's the pusher. He's the best pusher I've seen. I've only been around the simulator sports racing a very short time, but you are the man when it comes to making up time, pushing, and getting people in. So, not much else I can say about that except for congratulations on a second place finish and getting your teammate up there to the win.
I appreciate it, guys.
All righty. One more question, though, Edward. We're looking at your truck, so a big shout-out right there to Gearhead Paint Shop. Great-looking truck, but if you're the Reaper, well, what is Lee?
I don't know. We'll have to discuss that one.
We're going to have to give him a name.
Yeah, we're going to have to come up with a nickname for him for sure. But
He may be the closer.
hey, there you go. We'll just have to make him the closer.
I've seen him close a few of these races.
Oh yeah, I've definitely helped him once or twice, I think. But I mean, that's what KMA is about. It's teamwork. It doesn't really matter who wins, but whoever's up front, I'm gonna help push them straight to the front. My teammate with Black Talon or KMA team members as well.
All right, well, great job, Edward Bray, bringing home second place. But Lee, the man of the hour, talk to me.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Very excited for you, brother. Did you know you were going to win this race when you got Edward up there on your tail end?
Well, I knew I had a lot better shot of winning. You never know if you're going to win for certain. You never just assume you are, but the odds increased tremendously with him behind me.
All right, Ronald, do you have any questions for our winner tonight?
As a fan in the stands, can you talk us through the last 3 laps of the race?
The last 3 laps is you want to force field all the way around your vehicle. You're looking forward, you're looking sideways, you're looking in the mirror. If you had eyes in the back of your head, it would even be easier than that. But I tell you, it's hard to stay with your teammate because that primal instinct of me kicks in those last 5 to 10 laps. And I've really had to teach myself some patience and some determination of sticking with Ed, my teammate, instead of abandoning him and me trying to win the race every time. I've tried to learn to take more of a back seat than before, so it seems to be working out pretty good.
I would have to agree with you. It definitely did seem like it worked out very well tonight. I want to thank you for an exciting race. Very few cautions in the race. Great race to watch from the booth. I'm sure the fans enjoyed it. I can't speak for them, but I enjoyed it greatly.
Well, I'm glad, Ronald. And besides Ed, I want to give a big shout out to Donald Stewart. Before that final green flag, he said he was going to push me to a win. So I had a lot of help from Donald, too. So I appreciate both those guys.
Is there anybody else you'd like to give a shout out to before I turn it over to Scott?
I think I'm good. Just thanks to you and Scott and everybody that watches these telecasts every week. We get a big kick out of it, whether we win or lose. And I just love this. I really do. Don't want to miss any of them.
All right, well, I tell you what, you did a great job tonight. Congratulations on the teamwork with you and Edward and Black Talon. And hey, score another one there for Black Talon. Good job, Lee and Ed.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Ronald, final thoughts about tonight's race.
I'm ecstatic, Scott. I thought that it was a fantastic race. You just showed we only had 2 cautions. Not typical for super speedway racing, but it does happen occasionally where we do have very few cautions. I thought tonight produced great racing throughout the race. It was fun to watch from the booth. It was fun to call from the booth. The last few laps, I don't think that you could ask for a better finish. It's as they say, bring it home, checkers or wreckers, and that's what those guys did. They waited till the last lap to do it.
And I tell you what,
I couldn't be happier.
And I tell you, the only thing that can make me happier is if they do this great a job tomorrow night. Ladies and gentlemen, do not forget about our pad race tomorrow. Same bat cave, same bat time. Maybe I'll see you there, Ronald. Great job tonight in the booth, Ron. Appreciate you helping me out.
Absolutely. Anytime, Scott.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up out of here. Thank you for joining us as well. He is Ronald Klein. I am Scott Kolovic. And this is a KMA Slamming Saturday special event. And you are some awesome fans out there. We'll see you tomorrow night at the pad race. Good night, Ronald.
Thanks, Scott.